hello, and happy marvelous Monday. How are you today? Listen, I've been on vacation and I've missed you all so much. It feels like it's been a month of Sundays, right? I just want to say thank you so much for all of you who showed me um, birthday love for my birthday, which was February the 1st. I turned 27 again. Woo woo. I went on vacation. I got 10 shades darker. And I feel absolutely amazing. So thank you. Welcome back. I'm Carissa's fan, the landlord and tenant coach. This is what I do each and every Monday. I share information for landlords as well as tenants. And today we are talking about prohibited practices for landlords as well as tenants. Um, Let me know if you can hear me okay in the chat box. Give me a shout out. Say, hey, girl. Hey, let me know you're here. Let me know you're tuned in. Where are you watching from? Are you tuned in from Facebook or are you on YouTube? Let me know. Where are my peeps? Come on, check in with me. All right. So today, again, we are talking about prohibited practices. I touched on it a little bit, but I just want to share some more information because I received a lot of calls and text messages pertaining to prohibited practices. And so these are just tips I'm giving for individuals who may be managing property, maybe renting property. There are some things that you must know when it comes to rental property, some things that a lot of landlords and owners are not aware of, as well as tenants. And so, my goal today is to provide information that's clear and understandable. So, if at any point of time, if you have a question pertaining to the subject matter today, please let me know. Let me know also which jurisdiction you're tuned in from. I love to know where my viewers are tuned in from. Would you do that for me? And if any information that I share today is helpful for you or you feel like it's helpful for somebody else, go ahead and tag or share it with somebody else so that it could also help them as well. Hey, Lynn, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. I turned 27 again. Lynn, I had a phenomenal time. I went on a cruise. It was mind blowing. Listen, in the DC metropolitan area, it was cold. Um, we were getting ready to have some snow, but when I went on a cruise, I was at the beach. Lynn, I'm not sure if you saw some of the footage, but I got a chance to. I told you all. Now, remember, Lynn, I'm not sure if you tuned in on that segment when I said that for my birthday, I'm going to be wiggling my toes in somebody's sand. As a matter of fact, I was on the beach. I went to Belize, I went to Mexico, and had an absolute great time. Lynn, I've already planned my next two cruises for this year already. I love cruises as well. We should go together. All right, so today I'm talking about prohibited practices. And again, this is for landlords as well as tenants. If you have questions, drop it in the comment section. If you want to chime in, please do so. So I'm going to get straight into it because I know that I started a little late today. Lynn, I have been continuing on with the birthday celebration, but I still just wanted to share some information because I know that a lot of emails and text messages have come in regarding to prohibited practices because a lot of people, unfortunately, are not as knowledgeable when it comes to the rental property business and manage it, especially those who are self-managing property. But even those housing professionals who have been in the industry for an extended period of time may not be aware that laws have changed. Okay. That's the thing about rental property, the business, the laws, the regulations, the policies. Things are always changing. And so you have to make sure that as a housing provider, that you are current, that you stay updated with the changes that are taking place. Okay. Because the one thing that you never want to do as a landlord is to get yourself into trouble in a hot seat or a lawsuit for what you don't know. One of the things that I commonly share, and that's this philosophy: what you don't know can and or will hurt you. Okay. So please make sure that you are paying attention to some of the information that I'm sharing today because tenants as well as prospects are able to sue landlords and owners and property managers for violating the laws. All right. And so the laws are not in place based off of what an owner believe, or think should happen, but laws are in place to prevent discrimination. And sometimes discrimination can happen indirectly or by accident because of something that's said that you didn't know. As a landlord, you absolutely cannot say, right? And so this is why I do what I do. I am passionate about sharing information. I have been in the property management industry for well over 25 years. Hello, Cecilia. Thank you so much for the birthday love. I do appreciate that, beautiful. But being in the industry for so long, managing thousands of property, I have seen so much, and some of my clients are just not as knowledgeable. And so this is why I share information. Okay, so again, if you have questions, please drop it in the comment box. But I'm going to get into it today because I want landlords as well as tenants to understand what their roles, their responsibilities, and their rights are. And so I touched on this previously, but I just want to share. And for some, it may be a recap. For others, it may be new. And I'm adding on to the information that I previously shared. Housing discrimination. The Fair Housing Act came about in 1968, and it was implemented to prevent housing discrimination. So whether it's for renting or selling rental property, the Fair Housing Act is in place to cover buyers as well as tenants. But for the sake of this conversation today, I'm specifically speaking to renters. Okay, so landlords and tenants. Landlords cannot refuse to rent property. One of the biggest mistakes that I see, I specialize in affordable housing. I've been in affordable housing industries for many, many years. And some landlords and some owners in jurisdictions that have a high population of, for instance, Section 8 housing choice voucher participants. I've seen a lot of owners who will say, "Oh, well, Carissa, I don't rent to Section 8 people. I don't rent my property to Section 8 tenants." And I'm always kind of like, and you just said that in public, like, you can't refuse, you cannot refuse to rent to someone because they are in a Section 8 program. If you have a multifamily property, so if you have an apartment building, and you have vacancies, you cannot flat out say that you will not rent to people who are participating in the voucher program. Now, here's what you are allowed to do. Okay. Um, Let me take my time because I want you to really get this. Uh, so, if you have an application criteria or standard that you're looking for. And let's say, for instance, Lynn, I'm going to use you because I know that you are a landlord in the industry. So, Lynn, you have a vacant property. It's an apartment building that has at least 6 units, right? Um, you don't live at the building, but you self-manage the property, and you say, "Well, Carissa, we don't accept Section 8." Um, that's against the law. You can't just flat out deny someone because maybe of what you've heard, the negativity that you may have experienced previously, or just not being knowledgeable about the program and how it works. Now, again, if you have an application criteria and if the applicant does not meet your criteria, that's fine. Um, But also, if they don't meet your criteria, you don't have to bend the rules to make sure that they can rent your property. So just make sure that if you have a standard, make sure that it's in writing, make sure that it's clear and concise. You don't want anybody to assume that you are discriminating because someone has a voucher program. I'm sorry, is a voucher participant in the housing program. But make sure that you are documenting. I'm really big on documenting things because documentation beats conversation any day. Would you agree with me on that? Documentation beats conversation any day. All right, so that's number one. Now, here is why people cannot discriminate against individuals in housing subsidy programs, housing programs, because the program it essentially equates to income. So you cannot refuse to rent to someone because they're in a program because the subsidy that comes in from that program is actually income. Now, if you have an income preference, whereas maybe you have a tax credit property, or no, that's a bad example because usually tax credit property is affordable. So let's say that applicants must have a minimum income of, let's say, $32,000, right? And this individual, even with their participation in the program, they don't qualify according to your standard income standard, that would be okay. So I just wanted to make sure that you all were clear on that. Okay, so again, landlords cannot flat out refuse to rent to people who are in the voucher program because that is a prohibited practice. They cannot refuse to allow tenants to live on a higher floor with kids. So for instance, there is a a 4-level apartment building, right? There are apartments available on the first floor, the third floor, and the fourth floor. Second floor is completely filled up. No vacant apartments available. So they have a vacant unit on the first floor, the third, and the fourth floor. So I have found in the past a landlord who steered every tenant who had kids, a child or kids. He steered all of those applicants to apartments on the first floor only. He did not put anybody with kids on the third or the fourth floor. He didn't do that because he said that previously tenants who had kids and who lived on the upper floors, the kids made a lot of noise and tenants under them complained. Well, that is a prohibited practice. That is against the law. Landlords cannot steer families to just lower level apartments. So if you have apartments available on multiple floors, please make sure that you are disclosing that. Please make sure that you are sharing that information. Because now here is something that a lot of people don't know. There is such a thing called testers. Testers are real. Testers are in place to see if landlords are violating the law. Because if they are found guilty of violating the law, a lawsuit can be filed against them. All right. And so testers will go out. They may see an advertisement to say, we have multiple apartments available. And a tester will show up as if they're really trying to rent the property, and they'll ask questions to see what the landlord's response is going to be. So, for instance, a tester may show up with 3 kids and they may say, well, I have 4 kids. I have one who has a disability and she cries all the time. That could be a turnoff for the landlord. So that landlord could say, well, in their mind or their head, or maybe in the paperwork in their office, they may say, well, we think we're going to put this family on the first floor because that may be better for them. And sometimes good intentions could violate the law. And although sometimes landlords, they mean well, maybe this landlord legit and really is concerned about this family and feel that being on the first floor may be the best thing for the family. But here is where people make the mistake. Landlords cannot choose for tenants. If there are multiple vacant apartments available, it is the family's choice. It is the tenant's choice where they live. If it's the first floor, the third, or the fourth floor. So a prohibited practice is a landlord steering. Steering is against the law. You could definitely get yourself in a lot of trouble if you are steering people to a specific floor as it pertains to them having children, because familial status is a protected class under fair housing laws. Now, when it comes to, and here's another mistake that people make when it comes to foreigners renting. Um, I've seen owners who will tell foreigners that they must have a driver's license in order to complete the application process. Does anybody believe that it's against the law for a landlord to require applicants to show a driver's license? Anybody in the chat box, let me know. Do you think it's against the law for a landlord to say that you must have a driver's license? Hello, Tanika. Thank you so much, sis. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am going to keep doing my absolute best to inspire others. Thank you for that. Okay, I see your question, Lynn. You said if your tenant is renting month to month, how often can the rent be changed? Okay, um, that's a great question. And so, if let me just say that it depends on the jurisdiction. Okay, if in that rental jurisdiction, Lynn, if the law allow you to increase the rent more than once a year, you can do it. Most places will allow you to only increase the rent once a year. So it depends on where the jurisdiction is. Even if it is month to month, find out the frequency of when you can do the rent increase based off of where the rental property is. But that's a great question. All right, so Lynn, I think you're answering the question by saying that landlords can require applicants, can they make it a requirement to show a driver's license? Hello, Jennifer. Thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful. All right, so if that's your answer to my question, Lynn, uh, give me a heart, give me a thumbs up on that. But the answer to that question is no. An answer that a lot of people were not anticipating to hear. I know. I got it. I got it. They cannot make it a requirement. Absolutely. Okay. All right. David said no. Hey, David, thank you so much for tuning in. That's correct. Landlords cannot make it a requirement for applicants or for foreigners to show a driver's license. Now, owners, I'm sorry, owners can't make it a requirement, but now owners can say that, hello, Mary Lou, thank you so much for tuning in the Philippines. I know it's morning over there. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now, landlords can make it part of their policy to say that it can be a government issue ID, but it can't be a driver's license. And I've seen so many people make the mistake. Foreigners apply who don't look like them, and they'll tell them that they must have a driver's license in order to apply for their rental property. That is a prohibited practice. It is against the law. So if you are doing that, please, even if you have it in writing, please remove that. It's against the law to say that people must have a driver's license. Everybody does not drive. Okay. So I know I have some clients that are watching. They're going to watch the replay, and I've already shared this with them, and they don't like it, but it is a prohibited practice. Please make sure that you are not violating laws. I'm trying to help you to help yourself. All right. Now, also, when it comes to advertising online, and this is something that I've been following because I know that people have been talking about it. When it comes to advertising online, a lot of people are making mistakes because they are, and although they are trying to advertise to their preferred population, one of the things that I love about Facebook is that when you advertise on Facebook, you use Facebook has this feature where you can pay for advertising, right? And it'll ask you, well, what age range, or do you want to advertise to females? Do you want to advertise to males? Um, you cannot specifically do you can't do that specifically, right? And so whether it's through Facebook, whether it's through any other platform, Craigslist or Zillow or Trulia, whatever platform you use, you cannot single out a particular class of people. You cannot discriminate based off of sex, whether it's all females or all males. That is against the law. So if you are doing this, even in your advertising, please make sure that you are watching what you say, okay? because again, I shared how testers are real, right? And so this violates fair housing laws. Sex, religion, disability, those are protected classes. And a lot of owners are missing the mark. They are not understanding that there are just some things, even with advertising, you cannot say. As a matter of fact, let me touch on disability for a moment. Because if an applicant comes to you and they want to rent your property with a disability, by law, you cannot ask that applicant or that prospect what the disability is. Let me just tell you, let me just define what disability is according to fair housing laws while I'm on this subject. Disability is a physical or a mental thing. So just because a person doesn't come in with a wheelchair, just because you cannot physically see their disability doesn't mean that they do not have it. Don't try to play, PIs if you're a private investigator to figure out what their disability is. It is against the law to ask them why they're disabled, how they became disabled, or to say, oh, well, you don't look disabled. That's against the law. You could get yourself in a lot of trouble if you're doing that. So please don't do that. What you can do is ask the prospect or the applicant to provide documentation to support their claim, or them telling you that they are disabled. You can do that. All right. Now, if someone tell you that they have what is that, PTSD, they are required to tell you that. But other than that, if they have AIDS, if they have whatever their disability is, they are not required to disclose that information to you. All right. So please make sure that you are not asking those type of questions. And so I had an inbox message earlier. A tenant wanted to know if her landlord could refuse to accommodate her disability. And she wanted to know if that was housing discrimination. So this particular person, she's a tenant. She is disabled. She's legally disabled. Her landlord is aware that she has a disability. And her landlord refused to accommodate her disability, meaning that she requested that the landlord alter the home to make it wasn't necessarily, well, she wanted it to be handicap accessible. So she specifically wanted a grab bar in both of the bathrooms, but she wanted a specific grab bar, right? It wasn't just a normal grab bar. And so the landlord told her that they would not install it. They were not willing to pay for it, but that they did give her permission to pay for it. And so obviously, because she is a low income tenant, she cannot afford to just go purchase the grab bars, have someone to professionally install it and pay them, because the owner told her, listen, we are not able to pay for the grab bars that you want, the specific type that you want, but we will allow you to purchase it and have it professionally installed. So before I go any further, I want you to chime in on this. Okay, thank you for that, Mary Lou. So I want you to chime in on this. So this owner told the tenant, listen, we're not going to do it, but you can do it. Do you think that was right? Do you think that's fair? Do you think that is safe? Is it safe for a landlord to say they're not going to do it, but allow the tenant to do it? Do you think that that's fair? Do you think that that's safe? Anybody? Yes or no in the comment section. So this tenant, she wanted to know if her landlord was violating the law, because her landlord said, listen, you can do it. Just make sure that it's legally, I'm sorry, that's professionally done. All right, Cecilia, you said that's not safe. Lynn, you said yes. Fair, yes. Safe, no. Okay, I like that. I like that. Okay, so it is safe for an owner to allow tenants to pay for it as long as it is professionally done. Here's why. By law, landlords are required to adhere or to at least receive and consider um, accommodations to, for tenants who are disabled. Now, landlords can pass that on to the tenant if it's going to cause a financial hardship. So remember, that's why I want you to listen to the words that I say sometimes. Remember, I said that the landlord um, was willing to do it, but not that particular type because the tenant wanted she specifically wanted a particular brand which cost a little bit more money. So it wasn't just a normal grab bar. It was like one of those high-end grab bars. And it had to look a certain way. And so this landlord was like, yo, this is a lot of money. And unfortunately, we are not able to take on that responsibility, financially, but if you want to do it, just make sure it's professionally done. And the landlord gave this consent to the tenant in writing. And so that is okay and that is safe. Just know what you can and cannot do. So that's why I share this information, because I know that some people don't know. It is safe as long as you put it in writing, as long as the tenant understand. But you have to at least tell the tenant in writing that if it creates a financial hardship, they could be responsible for it. Now, there are some exceptions to that rule. Okay. So for the larger landlords, larger properties that may have in-house Section 8, may have a contract with HUD, things of that nature, that may be a little bit different. But when it comes to owners who are self-managing, or if you're managing somebody else's property, that doesn't necessarily apply to you. But you are required to know what the law says that you can and cannot do when it comes to fair housing law. Okay, so another question that came in from a tenant was, can my landlord refuse to rent if I have, so they live in a jurisdiction where the lease can be renewed. Okay. And so she's pregnant and she wants to know, can her landlord refuse to renew, all right, renew her lease or rent to her again because she's having another child? All right. So I think in that situation, this particular tenant, um, she already had complaints from other neighbors that went to the owner because of her kids making noise. And so now she's pregnant again. And the landlord, I believe the landlord may have had a conversation with her to tell her that they're not going to renew her lease. And she believes that it's because she's having another child. So she asks, can her landlord refuse to rent to her again because she's having another child? Familial status is a protected class. Landlords cannot refuse to rent because tenants have kids. Okay. I know that in some cases, even when it comes to tenants who have, let's say, 4, 5, 6 kids, sometimes owners don't really desire to have a whole lot of kids in the rental property. And, that's their preference. People can have a preference as long as it does not violate the law. So, for instance, a 4 or 5 bedroom property, I've had applicants that have complained that landlords would not rent to them because they got a lot of kids. Well, that's why even on the application, landlords should not be asking, how many children do you have? What landlords and owners can ask is, how many occupants, how many people will be living in the rental property. Please do not ask a prospect how many kids they have, because if they are denied, and they believe that they are denied because they told you they have kids, you could get yourself in trouble as well. So that is a prohibited practice. Please don't refuse to rent to people because they have kids. Familial status is a protected class under fair housing laws. Um, like I said, there are some exemptions. So, for instance, this is one of the things that I shared with my class. Also, teach property management, and so I shared with my class an example. So, let's say there is a 4-unit apartment building. Okay, it's a 4-unit apartment building. The owner lives in one of the apartments. There are 2 other apartments that are occupied, and there's one vacant rental. And so in this apartment building, the owner refuses to rent to a particular class. And by law, they can do that because that is an exemption, even under fair housing laws. And a lot of people don't know the difference. So if it's a small apartment building, if it's owner occupied, the owner can discriminate legally. All right, so I just wanted to share some of those prohibited practices. I did cover a few about 2 weeks ago, but I just wanted to add on because this is something that I'm certain that we're going to see a lot of more lawsuits coming up, especially because we are coming out of the pandemic. We are coming out of the public health emergency where the eviction moratorium was in place. And a lot of landlords violated fair housing laws in that. And so a lot of lawsuits are going to be coming up. A lot of lawsuits are now heading towards court. And so my goal, if I can help anybody to avoid going down that road, I would love to share information, which is what I do each and every Monday, right here on either my Facebook page or my YouTube channel at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate um, you showing up. Hello, Sissy. Thank you so much for tuning in from Brooklyn. Hello, D. Thank you, beautiful. Okay, let me come to you, Cecilia. You said due to insurance issues. Explain that for me, Cecilia. I'm sorry, I missed the statement that I was making when you dropped that comment in. Okay, David, you said, can landlords choose the type of vouchers they would accept? For instance, only permanent vouchers accepted. David, that's a great question. I would make that possibly, um, if that's your internal policy. Let me respond this way. And I'm not giving you any legal advice, but I do know that owners have a preference. For instance, some owners prefer to have permanent vouchers. And for those of you who don't understand his question, when it comes to renting to people, I'm sorry, tenants who participate in a voucher program, they're getting housing assistance from the government. And so they're called vouchers. There are some permanent vouchers, meaning that these tenants, they have a voucher and they can stay in this program forever and ever and ever and ever with no expiration date on it. However, there are some short term or some temporary vouchers, which may be for 12 or 18 months, right? And so David is asking, can he choose, or can a landlord choose rather, um, which voucher they're going to go with? I know that a lot of people have a preference, usually. And I'll be honest enough, David, to say that I prefer long term vouchers. And so what I do is I will show, I will market, I will advertise my rental property as being available. And when prospects are coming in, of course, I have to show it. I can't just flat out say, well, no, I'm not going to rent to Rapid Rehousing, or no, I'm not going to rent to Sisters in Christ because that's a short term program. I will allow applicants to apply, and whoever is the strongest applicant, whoever is the strongest candidate, that's who I'll rent to. So I know that times you may have a preference, but just definitely know that you cannot market, you cannot advertise, and you cannot say that you will only rent to permanent vouchers. Many, many years ago, I made this mistake, David. And although I meant well, this was early on. Again, I've been doing this for almost over 25 years. And so I meant well because I was trying to help an owner. She had always rented to market tenants. And so she said, well, Carissa, I just want to rent to a voucher family because that's my way of giving back. I've never rented to people, in the affordable housing community. And because, again, I specialize in affordable housing. So people come to me because they want tenants who are in some sort of affordable housing program. So in one of my advertisements, I put on there, looking for voucher tenants only. That's against the law. And although I meant well because this owner meant well, that was the wrong thing to do. So, David, to answer your question, you can have a preference. Just make sure that you're not violating the law. Okay. Yep. So, David, have your preference. Just don't violate the law. Now, David, one of the things that I would also suggest if you're still here is that set your criteria. Look at the population that you serve, and maybe reach out to specialists or caseworkers in those particular type of programs, because they will usually send people your way. So this is one of the things that I tell my clients: know what population of people, of tenants you would like to rent to. You market and you advertise to that agency, and let that agency send you people that they have. That way, it's no issues. You're not violating any laws. And thank you so much for asking that question, because I know that a lot of people have that same question. You said, yes, I know several horror stories with short term voucher holders. When the voucher expired, people never leave and you have to evict. Listen, that is the one thing that I hate the most, is seeing people go through that. And I've managed thousands of property in my career. And just recently, well, prior to the pandemic, um, I've seen owners who had short-term tenants. The subsidy expired. The tenant could not afford to pay the rent. The tenant did not move out right away. So not only were they not paying the rent, they had no housing subsidy coming in from the government anymore. And now the landlord had to pay for an attorney. So that's like lose, lose, lose. And I hate to hear people going through that. Um, but you can have success with the right screening, communicating with caseworkers. But if it's in a jurisdiction where it's pro tenant and you must take the tenant to court and the courts are backed up for whatever reason, then that makes it really a not so great experience. But it happens all the time, David. Thank you for your question. And that's why I'm here to do what I do. Yes, absolutely. Get yourself a good landlord and tenant attorney. Thank you for that, Cecilia. All right. Um, Cecilia, you said my tenant requested to have a gate rail for the steps installed inside the house professionally. My real estate agent sent her a letter giving her permission. The person she hired installed it incorrectly. Yikes. And she fell down the stairs when the grab bar gave way. Her laser told her to sue me. Her lawyer told her to sue you and the contractor. She tried to sue you and the contractor. Wow. So I don't know how far that will go, Cecilia. But here's the thing: nothing stops tenants or people from suing. Oh, you're welcome, David. Thank you. And it's my pleasure. So nothing, Cecilia, nothing stops a tenant from filing a lawsuit. But if you can prove that, number one, in writing, you or your real estate agent gave your tenant permission to have it professionally done, then I don't know if the judge will allow you to pay for the mistake that whoever she got to put it in. So make sure it's clear, make sure that it is in writing, please. That's why I put a great emphasis on documentation beats conversation any day. If it's not in writing, you can't prove it. You can't enforce something that does not exist. If it's not in writing, it does not exist. So please make sure you're putting everything in writing. If you have questions, get a landlord and tenant attorney who can help guide you. Ask all the questions that you need. This is what I do each and every week. And so you can come on here, you can ask me questions, and I will give you industry's best practices and tips. I teach property management. I've been in the industry for a while. I don't know everything, but what I don't know, I'll follow up and get you the information that you need. I thank you so much for tuning in today, guys. Again, I'm Carissa Span. This is what I do each and every Monday at 7:30. Thank you so much for tuning in. My time is up, and I thank you for yours. Please, again, if you find this information helpful, share it with somebody else who's a landlord or a tenant. Please make sure that you're tuning in each and every week. Okay, tune in every week, have a different topic, something that I'm going to share that you may need, whether you're the landlord or whether you are the tenant. If you have questions, feel free to email me. I will follow up. My email address, let me see if I can find it for you, is carissaspan@gmail.com. carissaspan@gmail.com is my email address. Um, Here it is. That's my email address. And yeah, I appreciate you. I love you all so much. And listen, if you have questions, email me or inbox me. I'll see you all next Monday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye for now.